Hello, my friends. This is Mr. Salinetro, and today I want to read you a story that's very special to me. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to a friend that's also very special to me. This is my pet mouse, and this mouse's name is Eerie. Eerie because he's got some ears that kind of stick out pretty far from her head. I'm sorry, this is a girl. My nephew Everett named this mouse. And this is one of 3 mice that I own as a pet. I've always owned mice ever since I was a little boy. They've always been one of my favorite animals and favorite pets. And so the story I'm going to read to you today was inspired by one of my first mice that I ever owned named Walter. And this story is written by me. And all the pictures are drawn by me too. This story is called Walter in the Dark. I wrote it in high school, Walter in the Dark. I hope you like it. It's written and illustrated by Tim Salinetro. Tim is my first name, if you didn't know that. This next page has a picture of Walter. It's kind of hard to see, but that's Walter. He was my very first mouse. And this story was written to honor him. Mommy, Mommy, are we ready to make the Easter candy yet? Cried the anxious little Walter Mouse as he raced down the stairs on what Walter considered to be a fabulous Saturday morning. Can we start now? He asked. His mother then replied, We can start in a minute, once I set everything up and you go downstairs to get the candy molds. Downstairs? But Mom, the lights are out and it's dark, said the reluctant Walter. I know, but you know where all the stuff is, so you go down and get that and we'll start, said his mother. As you can probably tell, Walter does not like the dark very much, but his mother is very smart, so see what happens to Walter in the dark. Walter walked over to the basement, and he cautiously poked his head around the doorway. He stared down into the dark basement and started to go down the steps. When he got about 3 steps down, his mind started to play tricks on him. He heard scary noises, and finally Walter broke down. Kapwing! He shot back up the steps and ran to his mom. I can't go down there, Mommy. It's too dark and I'm scared, said Walter while quivering on his mother's leg. Now, Walter, his mother replied, it can't be that bad. Now, what's so scary down there that makes you not want to go down? I heard a scary noise and I'm just sure that there are monsters down there, said Walter. His mother then said to him that there's nothing down in the basement and that there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, we really have to get started on the candy, and I have to set up here. So I really need you to get the molds from the basement, said Walter's mother. Walter then said, Okay, Mom, I'll try again, but I really don't like it in the basement. There he is peeking around and running back up the stairs. Wait a minute, Walter, his mother said as she walked over to a drawer and pulled out a flashlight. Here, take this, she said while handing him the flashlight. Maybe it will help. So Walter took the flashlight and proceeded to the basement door. He switched on the flashlight and started down the steps. He got about halfway down the steps when he noticed scary shadows on the wall made by the flashlight. He tried not to notice them, but he couldn't. Kapwing! Again, Walter shot back up the steps and was on his mother's leg. There's something down there. I saw its shadow, said Walter, who was now shaking more than before. Oh, Walter, it was probably just a box or something that looked like a monster in the dark, said his mother, who now had another idea for Walter to try so that he would not be scared. If you can see there, the coat is making a shadow like a ghost on the wall, and that is what frightened Walter. Now, Walter's mother was very smart, and she thought that she knew what Walter could do to get over his fear of the dark. All right, Walter, why don't you try singing to yourself or humming to yourself? It worked for me when I was a kid, and I'll bet it will work for you, said Walter's mother. She hoped that this idea would work because she was getting impatient. So Walter returned to the top of the steps, thought of a song, and started to silently sing to himself. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. He got almost all the way down the stairs when the sound of his voice started to echo off the basement walls and ceiling. It made noises that sounded pretty scary to Walter. The sound of the echoes in the darkness was too much for Walter to bear. I'll bet you know what's coming next. Yep. Kapwing! He shot back up the steps, and this time he jumped on the couch, and he hid under the blanket. He looks pretty scared. His mother walked up to him, and Walter was scared stiff. He would not even move from under the blanket, unless she promised him that she wouldn't try to make him go down again. Then Walter heard his mother say softly from the other side of the blanket, "I'm not going to promise anything, but I would really like you to get over your fear of the dark." Walter slowly came out of the blanket. "But it's dark, Mommy, and I don't want to go back down there," said Walter in a tiny voice. "Would you please try one more of my ideas?" his mother asked quietly. "All right. What you got?" replied Walter. "Why don't you try making a game out of it? Act like you're a secret agent and you're trying to get a special treasure from the basement." Walter agreed to try his mom's idea, and he stood at the top of the steps wearing his secret agent clothing. He put his back against the wall and he went down the steps in a cautious, spy-like movement. When he got to the bottom, he had totally forgotten about his fear of the dark, and he was on his secret mission to find the sacred candy molds. Come in, headquarters. This is Tiny Mouse. I've got the molds and I'm coming in," said Walter into his hand that was shaped like a walkie-talkie. Walter came upstairs and he set the molds on the table. "Well, I see that my idea worked. I'm glad I could help." "Oh, it sure did." "Now let's get started making this candy," said Mom. "Actually, I would really like to go back to playing spies in the basement if that's all right," said Walter. His mother laughed and happily allowed Walter to go play in the basement. There he is, sneaking down, and there's the box of candy molds underneath the steps. "Whew, I'm glad that's over," she said. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she heard the sound of footsteps coming up the steps. Walter came jetting out of the doorway, and he grabbed his mother's leg. "Oh, no," she thought. "What's the matter now?" she asked Walter. And he said in a shaky voice, "There's a huge spider down there, and I'm afraid of spiders." I could tell you how he overcame his fear of spiders, but that's another story. The end. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed writing it. Almost 20 years ago is when I wrote this book and drew the pictures for it in school. I wrote it because when I was a little boy, I was really afraid of the dark, and I hated going into my basement or upstairs into the darkness, but my mom and dad would help me figure out ways to do it. I know that you've got special people at home too that can help you when you get scared. So think about those times, and think about Walter and the ways that he helped not be so scared of things. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you next time.